Today we're speaking with Dave Chopra, who's the Vice President of Infrastructure Services at Wipro. And the topic for today is Globalization of IT Services and the impact of digital and automation. So Dave, can you first provide a brief background of yourself?
Sure. Hi, Dustin, and nice to speak with you today. Firstly, thank you for having me on your conversation. As you know, my name is Dave. I've been in the industry for long. I recently joined Wipro about 2 years ago, and I head up a significant part of their infrastructure business. I'm based out of the United States, New Jersey.
Thanks. Well, the issue of IT, the infrastructure business, so it's not new, but can you talk about some of the growth drivers, whether it's continuing to grow and what has been changing and hasn't been changing?
Sure, and I think that's a deep question for it to be the first one. But if you really look at the history of infrastructure services, I think this has been one of the oldest businesses that has existed in the IT business community, and started all the way back when mainframes and punch cards were still alive. And I think that the real change, and I think the important part of the discussion today is globalization, which essentially started to happen after the dot-com burst, which is in the year 2000. And that essentially was because the birth of the internet and connectivity. In earlier days, it was very difficult to support, maintain anything that was mission critical, because the connectivity across the world was just not as robust and as consistent as it became after that. So I think if you really dial back about 17 years, you would see that infrastructure services, and to that extent, the support services across infrastructure and applications, and even to a large extent, business processes, started to bubble up in different parts of the world. And as things would have it, India started to emerge on the global map as a credible source of this support framework. And the reason why that happened was obviously skill in abundance, education in abundance, and the cultural and the sociological system of India was built on a very strong foundation of education. And as it started there, also what started was the other such economies of the world, mostly like Philippines, Costa Rica, in Latin America. And what started to happen was, as education was getting more and more important in these geographies, so was the availability of talent pool that was coming out of the door of engineering colleges and graduate colleges, and was available for these new age companies to take leverage of and provide such support services. And that is when these companies started to come to life, and was the birth of globalization. Now, if you really fast forward and if you take jumps of 5 years each at a time, from 2000 to 2005, I think the world just started to look at it. When I'm saying the world, it is more of the developed countries, the Western world, started to experiment with the cost structures and the socioeconomic situations that were not very known to them, and started to indulge with these economies and these cultures to see if that fits into their mindset of how they wanted to provide support and operations to their businesses. And by 2005, it was fairly established that this would work. So from 2005 to 2010, you saw a rapid growth of globalization in the IT context, be it application development, maintenance, support, infrastructure support, and even mission critical processes, both on the application or all three application, business process, or the infrastructure side, started to become more and more globalized. And what people also realized in that time frame was that you need to spread out your operations for to cater to the risk of a disaster, which the world unfortunately experienced at some point in some geographies. And then the globalization truly started to take shape, and people started to, and businesses, large businesses, started to really leverage a global, either follow the sun or a typical on-site offshore model to be able to provide a radically lower cost structure and a definitive quality in how they wanted to support their businesses. So this happened till 2010, and that was the birth of efficiency in the context of IT. So 2010 to 2015 became the age of the newer thought process of trying to do things much faster, much cheaper, and with a lot more better quality. And that is where automation was born. And if you look at automation, those were the days when RPA, which is the robotic process automation, just became relevant. And from there till now, it's really kind of taken a paradigm shift. And today we all talk about either a Watson of IBM or a Holmes of Wipro, where these are much more advanced and cognitive in that sense. So 2010 to 2015 was a time when people started to experiment with the fact that can a machine do a lot more than it used to do before, and can that provide a better cost structure, a better quality of service, and a better globalized state of operation now, not only in the physical world but also in the virtual world, so that the businesses can take advantage of that. And I think now we are in this era of 2015 to 2020, where because of digital, because of the five forces of SMAC, as you call them, and as IoT become more and more relevant and real in our lives, the data is just in some sense pounding the planet. And if you really look at some statistics, it said that there will be in excess of 50 billion devices that will come online by 2020. And if you just want to think about the amount of storage, compute, even raw electricity or power that will be required to sustain these devices, that would take the current world 2 times over to burn everything that we have to be able to support those devices. So as we are progressing now, I think as globalization became established in 2005 and then saw rapid growth from 2005 to 2010. Now, in 2015, between 2010 and 15, automation and social media, and called SMAC, right? In the essence of time, became established. Now we are seeing massive extension and massive explosion and real application of these technologies in the users or users or people like us in our daily lives, and all of that has to be supported, and that can only be supported if the operation is seamless, is 24/7, is globalized, and not only in the physical world but also in the virtual world, and there is a constant need to improve the quality of service every day. So kind of a long answer to a very short but deep question that you asked. What is globalization and what does it mean to the world of IT, and how has the last 20 years been in terms of growth, and are continuing to see growth? So in summary, the answer is the growth has just started again.
What about the next 20 years? Do you see what might be happening in the next 20 years that organizations need to adapt to?
I would say, in lack of better words, I would fool myself if I talk anything beyond 3 years, because who knew 20 years ago that there would be a Steve Jobs, and a company called Apple that will own enough money to buy the world 2 times over. But I think the next 3 years we will see a lot of change in this world. Data centers will be powered by the sun or the wind completely. The data will be stored in a biometric secured format, so we would not have keys and identity management. It would be our fingerprints and our eyes or the retina, which would contain our DNA information that would unlock things. Everything that we touch will be digitally identifiable, and most of what we would do will be more and more in the virtual world than in the physical world. Our interactions with the virtual world will become much more significant, much more deeper, and we are already starting to see that with autonomous cars, and today between Google and Apple they can figure out which part of the world I am and where my car is, irrespective of which flight I take. They know where I'm parked and where I have to be. So it's changing very rapidly, and I think in the next 3 years we'll get more and more dependent on these technologies, and to a point businesses will not be able to run with these technologies, and I think the retail business in the Western world is starting to see that impact. And this year, if we have closely looked at these reports of the last quarter, most of the brick and mortar shops are going out of business, and Amazon continues to grow. It's the virtual world that is taking over, and for the next 3 years that will continue to happen, and all of this will be the experience of the next 3 years will be defined by clicks and likes and Twitter reactions, and therefore a lot of data will be generated, and all of that data will be stored, analyzed, reacted upon, and at some times it will be vulnerable for attacks, and therefore the IT spend will need to get very focused on how to maintain this data, how to secure this data, and how to make meaningful sense from this data.
And thanks for sharing today, Dave. Did we cover all the points you wanted to make?
Sure. Yes, I think so.